Hola a todos y bienvenidos. Yo soy Mark de Coffee Break Spanish y estoy muy contento de estar aquí con vosotros hoy. Hoy vamos a hablar del Masterclass. The Masterclass is our 6-month course for intermediate learners of Spanish. And we're delighted that some of you can join us tonight to talk about the Masterclass, to look at the different elements of the Masterclass, and to try to help you identify whether the Masterclass is for you. Now, it's for an intermediate level, so we're going to be talking a little about what that means, about who the intermediate level is for, and exactly the content of the masterclass. But before we get there, let me just check a couple of things are working. First of all, you should be able to see the slides, and you should still be able to hear me. So that's all okay. The other thing I need to explain is that you may be able to hear I'm not feeling very well. I've got a bit of a estoy constipado, as they say in Spanish, and I should be very clear that that means to be constipated of the nose. So I've got a cold and I have been coughing rather a lot. So if you suddenly see this appear on the screen, it basically means I'm having a bit of a coughing fit. So even if I am not able to be on the screen, you'll still be able to practice your Spanish with the help of the verb toser, which means to cough. So I'll be testing you at the end to see how much you've learned of toser. Hopefully we won't have to use it. Hopefully I won't have to cough. But we've actually just finished the Coffee Break French Masterclass webinar because this year we're doing both French and Spanish starting on the 1st of October. So that went well. It was really interesting to speak to lots of people, and we've got lots of people joining us tonight here on the Spanish the masterclass. We've got Florence from Switzerland. So Florence has been learning Spanish for 2 years and is from Switzerland. Bienvenue, welcome, oder willkommen vielleicht. Karen is joining us from Colorado. Estoy aprendiendo español por 3 años. So you've been learning for 3 years. We've got Sally joining us from Jersey. You're very welcome, Sally. Sue is joining us from Lancashire. Fantastic, Sue. I don't know if you're a Bake Off fan, but we will be finished in time for the Bake Off, Sue, don't worry. We have Abby, who is joining us from Norwich. Sally's just saying that she's been learning Spanish for 2 years. Fantastic. We've also got Christine. So Christine is saying, estoy mirando desde Clarkston. He completado un curso en Granada el verano pasado y ha usado Coffee Break Spanish y otras cosas por internet para aprender hace 3 años. So you've been learning for 3 years, and you've used Coffee Break Spanish among other things, and you've also done a course in I was going to say in Clarkston. Perhaps you're doing a course in Clarkston in Spanish, but a course in Granada probably would be at least better fun. Clarkston's lovely, but probably you've got more chance to practice your Spanish in Granada. Okay, so great to see some of you joining us tonight. Let us know. Abby's saying, "Oh no, I can't start coughing. I can't start laughing because then I'll start coughing." But Abby is saying, Me encanta el Bake Off." Those of you who are not watching in the UK, the Great British Bake Off is like I think they call it the Great British Baking Competition or something like that. I'm not quite sure what they call it elsewhere, but I know that some people in the UK love the Bake Off, and the Bake Off is happening at 8 o'clock, but we'll be well and truly finished by then. Okay, let us get on with talking about the masterclass because it's a fantastic course. It's a course that will help you take your intermediate Spanish to a new level, the level of beyond intermediate, so moving towards advanced. And I'm going to tell you more about what the masterclass entails. But before we do that, I've got a question for you. And that question is about what you find challenging as an intermediate learner of Spanish. So let me bring the question up. This is the question I would like you to answer. What are your greatest challenges as an intermediate learner of Spanish? Now, I'm going to give you 90 seconds to answer this question. You'll see the countdown timer on the screen. And this will give you a chance to write your answer in the comments, and then we'll talk a little about some of the challenges that you're finding as an intermediate learner of Spanish. So over to you, 90 seconds coming up. What are your Okay, so thank you so much for posting your answers there. Let's take a look at some of the things that you find difficult when you're trying to speak Spanish, and the difficult things that you find as an intermediate learner. So Abby says, using Spanish quickly and having to remember grammar. Absolutely. When you're on the spot, when you've got to use the Spanish and you're thinking, oh, is this the right tense? Is this the right agreement? And so on. It's very tricky to think about that on the spot. And it very often involves a lot of rehearsal almost, where you're rehearsing what you're going to say in advance. And that's about getting more access to the language. Susan is saying, dealing with the speed with which Spanish speakers talk. Absolutely. And Spanish speakers from different countries also speak in different ways. So you've got different accents and different speeds of delivery. So that's very much something that lots of intermediate learners find difficult. Annie's saying the past tense in conversation. So when you're chatting with someone and remembering you've got your present tense sorted, but perhaps you're struggling with knowing the past tense or the past tenses, because of course you've got a choice of a number of different past tenses that you have to use sometimes. Sue's saying understanding others in conversation. Absolutely. Again, it's all about knowing what to be able to respond because you've understood what they've said. Sometimes you can say the thing to them because you've prepared it, and then when they come back to you, it's like, oh, now what do I say? Nick is saying using Spanish day to day and being able to speak out loud in Espanol. Claro. So Nick, yeah, absolutely. Because when you're actually using it on a day to day basis, being able to speak in Spanish and say what you want to say can be a real challenge. Florence wants to speak fluently in Spanish. I think that's the goal of everyone, perhaps, wanting to be able to speak fluently and know what you're saying is correct, and then getting the right response from the person you're speaking to. Sally says something that is very, very common, finding people to practice speaking with, and that might depend on where you are in the world. Sometimes you will have great difficulty in finding other people to speak with, and sometimes speaking to other learners isn't necessarily what you want. You want to speak to native speakers. Abby's saying being confident enough to use Spanish, so building your confidence, trying to get beyond that intermediate level. And Sally comes back in and says remembering all the verb forms, especially the past tense. Michael is saying hello. He's been studying Spanish for 4 years, more or less. He's English from Manchester. His greatest challenges are to understand native speakers when they speak quickly. Absolutely. Della, is saying remember the different tenses. Karen understands what people say. Lo que la gente están diciendo. So what they're saying and speaking to. We've got Sheila saying having friends to practice with on a regular basis in my area, and Marte is saying tengo problemas de hablar y buscar las palabras, so speaking and finding the words that you're needing. So all of those responses there, really, really common responses for people at this level, people who have attained an intermediate level of Spanish, but sometimes it's difficult to take it on further. I always say when you're learning a language, you go forward for so often, for so long when you're learning the language, because you can move forward. You can feel as if you're making progress because you're learning new tenses or new grammar points, and you do go forward. But then there comes to this point and it's difficult to move forward at the same pace, and you actually have to go sort of out the way. Sorry, I just thumped the microphone there. You have to go out the way and move forward on a wider basis, and of course when you're moving forward on a wider basis, you're going to go slower. So that's a challenge too. And as Susan's saying there, glad I'm not alone. Well, yeah, absolutely. No one is alone because everyone is experiencing these same comments and these same difficulties. In fact, we've asked the question to lots of learners at this stage, and here are some of the comments that they have said about how they find difficulty with this intermediate stage and moving on beyond that intermediate stage. So some people, as many of you have said, I need to be able to use verbs in different tenses and cope with the different tenses, especially on the hoof, as it were. I want to sound more like a native speaker. So trying to sound authentic when you use those idiomatic expressions and when you use the types of language that people want to use when they're learning, and the types of language that native speakers would use. I want to expand my vocabulary. So people, when you're learning learning Spanish, sorry, we're on the Spanish one, Mark. When you want to expand your vocabulary, it's really, really important to have that wider vocabulary, because certainly when you're learning a language, you use the content that you're working on, whether that's a course, whether it's a podcast, whether it's going to classes, and you've got that content well learned. But that's not going to give you everything that you need to know. So you need more access to the language. You need to experience the language in a greater way, and to have more input, as it's called. The more input you have, the more you'll understand the language, and the more confidence you'll have in using it. So a couple of other answers. I've heard about the subjunctive, but don't have a clue how to use it. I think the subjunctive is this sort of mysterious thing, and very often when you're at this intermediate level, you've got a notion that it exists, you're not quite sure about it, but perhaps you just need a little bit of help getting over that hurdle of learning how to use and how to understand the concept of the subjunctive. And one final response here. I always get mixed up with por and para, or other things that Spanish learners find very difficult. So these things, these comments, are exactly why we created the Masterclass, because we wanted to create something that was a structured course, a progressive course, something that would allow learners to focus on what they're needing at that particular stage in order to be able to move forward. So I'm going to explain a little about the Masterclass now, and we'll talk through what's involved in the Masterclass. Let me bring in my slides. Okay, so the Masterclass is an online course, as you know, with a friendly approach. So the friendly approach that we have used throughout all the coffee break materials, it's still the same friendly approach for the Masterclass. These are lessons which fit your lifestyle, so they fit around the time that you have available. Engaging materials with expert teachers and native speakers from different parts of the Spanish-speaking world, which again is very important. Structured courses which help you organise your learning. Very often, courses that you come across will give you lots of materials and then leave it up to you to decide how to work your way through those materials. With Coffee Break Spanish, and particularly with the Masterclass, we don't do that. We help you every step of the way, help you understand exactly the path to take. Now, the actual Masterclass, let's take a look at what it involves. So we've got monthly modules, 6 monthly modules from October through to March. Short, regular sessions. So these are structured sessions. We're following a structure. It's not that choose your own adventure. It's very much a structured program with progression all the way through. Looking at audio content, text content, and then video review for each module. But this is still coffee break learning. If you've got 20 minutes of a coffee break, perhaps 3 or 4 times a week, then you can still very easily complete the content of the Masterclass. It's not something that's going to take hours and hours and hours every week. You'll be able to work through the content very easily. Okay, so coming back to the Masterclass, let's now take a closer look at what the actual content of the Masterclass is. Actually, sorry, no, we're not. We're going to look first of all at the schedule. I got mixed up with my order there. So the schedule of the Masterclass. We've got October 2019 when everything starts, and everything starts on the 1st of October 2019 with a lesson. So we've got lesson days that happen on the 1st, and then the 4th, and then the 8th. So every lesson you get a couple of days to work on the content of that lesson. So you'll be able to check what you've learned, go through the lesson again, and make sure you've understood all the vocabulary in the lesson and any grammar points in the lesson. So lessons 1, 2 and 3 come on the 1st, the 4th and the 8th, and then we take a little break, because on the 11th you'll get an exercise, and this gives you a chance to practice what you've learned in those first 3 lessons. We'll return with lessons on the 15th and the 18th, so that's the full 5 lessons for the module, and thereafter there's no more official learning, if you like, because what we do is focus on those 5 lessons for each module. And once you've completed those 5 lessons, the remainder of the month is either to make sure you've had time to complete them, or to do some consolidation. And to help you with that consolidation, we give you a video review of the content and a checklist, along with a module test. So you'll be able to check what you've learned and then use the test to find out if you have indeed learned all that content. Now, I should say, the test is not a scary test. It's not a big test with lots of questions. It's a multiple choice exercise which will let you see what you've learned. And if there's anything that you need to go back over, you can go and do that. So don't worry about the test. They're not big, scary tests. You take it whenever you're ready. So if you can work on the materials right up to the end of the month, that's fine. You can take the test when you want. Okay. So let us now take a closer look at what the content involves. So this is the breakup of all the modules. We're going to go through each module individually and explain exactly what's in the module. So let's take a look now. The first module is what we call frases hechas. Frases hechas are idiomatic expressions. So helping you develop a wider vocabulary through idiomatic expressions. If you like, this is a sort of gentle introduction to the masterclass. We're not going straight in there with complex grammar, but what we are doing is helping you pick up these nice expressions which you'll then be able to use in your own Spanish speaking. So again, when we talked earlier, some of you said you found it difficult knowing what to say or thinking on your feet. So if you've got these expressions sort of prepared, ready for particular situations, then you can throw them in and definitely bring a smile to a face of a native speaker if you use a nice idiomatic expression in your speaking. So we'll be using expressions that are used in Spain and the equivalents used in Latin America. So depending on where you're going to be speaking your Spanish, you'll have the correct expression to use. Giving that language in context. So it's not just a list of idiomatic expressions. That would be ridiculous. What we do is focus on different expressions and then put them in the context of conversations. So you'll be seeing dialogues, listening to these dialogues recorded by native speakers, and then you'll be able to hear these phrases in context. And then at the end of the module, of course, you'll have your exercise, your activities, your review, and your module test. So that's module 1 in October, all about idiomatic expressions, or frases hechas, as we call them, made phrases, if you like, frases hechas, hecha, from the verb hacer. Okay, so that's module 1 in October. Then in November, we move on to a new module. And this new module is called Tricky Verbs. Tricky Verbs, where we're looking at a group of verbs which you may well know, with which you may well be familiar, but perhaps you're not familiar with all of the uses of these tricky verbs. So for example, I'm sure you'll be familiar with the verb ser, to be, but we'll be using ser in a variety of ways, and in ways perhaps that you're not familiar with. Likewise, estar, everything you need to know about estar in one lesson. Tener, again, tener, you know the verb tener. It's probably one of the first things that you learn, tengo un hermano or whatever. But tener is one of those verbs which can be used in so many situations, and very figuratively as well. Likewise with dar. Dar means to give, but dar can be used in a huge range of situations, and dar is a great lesson, that one, because you learn lots of idiomatic expressions with dar. Then we also look at hacer, or hacer, depending on where you are. So to do, or to make, and again, lots of different ways in which you can use that verb, different from what you expect, not the sort of standard uses of those verbs. Of course, we will go through the verbs in detail and give you lots of examples of using the verbs in their traditional sense, but also give you examples of using those verbs in a more figurative sense or an idiomatic sense. And all of this in conversations and dialogues written by native speakers. And at the end of the module, of course, you'll get your exercise, your activities, your review, and your module test. That's November. Moving on to December. December, we're going back to look at vocabulary here, looking at false friends. Now, false friends are those words that you think you know what they mean because they look like words in English, but in actual fact, they mean something completely different. So this is a module about building your vocabulary, but also in this module, what you will see is the consolidation of the material that you've seen in Module 1 and 2, because everything that we do is progressive. So you're building on what's gone before, and that's really, really important. So with Module 3, we'll be looking at these false friends, words like actualmente, realizar, suceso, lectura, and many, many more. And of course, at the end, you'll get your exercise, your activities, your review, and your module test. I should also say, perhaps in December, we'll be contracting the dates a little so that we get, obviously there are many holidays in December, we'll get all the lessons finished, done and dusted, around about the 19th or the 20th. So hopefully that gives you the chance to calm down, to relax over the holiday period. So that is December, False Friends, Module 3 in the Masterclass. Moving on, Module 4 is all about tenses, so tense mastery. This is about where you will go through lots of different tenses and work on them and understand all the tenses, how they're used, when they're used, and again with lots and lots of examples. So we were looking at the past tenses. A number of you talked about the different past tenses. So the preterite, the perfect, the imperfect, mastering when to use which one. You'll be using the future and the conditional. And again, of course, at the end of this lesson, you'll have your review, your activities and your exercises. So that's January, tense mastery, and then moving on to February when we are going to be mastering the subjunctive. Now, in February, we're not going to be covering everything there is to know about the subjunctive. That would be impossible to do in 1 month. But what we will do is help you understand the concept of the subjunctive, what the subjunctive entails, and then recognise some of the triggers that need the subjunctive. So I'll give you some examples of this. We will be understanding the concept and the formation of the present subjunctive, using the subjunctive with certain triggers like para que, and also using the subjunctives with verbs of wanting and hoping. So we'll go through this, and again, all of this with your exercises and so on. All of this will be with the help of conversations, dialogues, and everything else. So you'll be seeing these subjunctives not just in a list of instructions and a list of verbs and a list of constructions. You'll be seeing them within the context of dialogues and authentic conversations. Finally, our last module is perhaps one of the most popular modules in the Masterclass, and that is tricky Spanish. So learning how to do things like use por and para, learning the difference between que and cual, mastering the personal a, which is tricky, and all the leísmo things that go along with that. Understanding verbs which work in the same way as gustar. You'll know that me gusta means that to me is pleasing, but with gustar, other verbs work in the same way as that. And then learning about verbs of change in Spanish. And of course, at the end, your exercise, your activities, your review, and your module test. So that is our final module on tricky Spanish, which we'll be doing in March. Now, I'm going to go on and explain a little more about what the Masterclass entails and what all of these modules entail. I also want to talk about who the Masterclass is for. But if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer these questions. I'm looking forward to having your questions and I will answer them after I've gone through the next few slides. So let's look at a kind of summary of this. As we said, the Masterclass is an online course. We're looking at clear and friendly presentation, including native speakers from a variety of places in the Spanish-speaking world. Authentic conversations all the time, so you're not just seeing lists of vocabulary, you're seeing the conversations within the context of, or the language rather, within the context of conversations. You'll also hear the conversations in a normal speed and a slower version of each conversation. So in the audio content, you'll be able to listen to the conversations at a normal speed and then also get that a slower version to help you understand exactly what is happening. You'll get full transcripts and lesson notes. So in actual fact, you'll get two types of lesson notes. We've got the main lesson notes for each lesson, which include the transcripts of the conversations and the vocabulary and some exercises. But then we've also got what we call the reference notes. And the reference notes are there to explain the background of what each lesson involves. So for example, if we're looking at the preterite tense, the preterite tense, you'll be given the preterite tense of regular verbs, then some common irregular verbs, and then examples of when the preterite tense is used. So it's almost like a reference book, a guidebook to accompany you along the course. So you'll get access to both the main notes and the reference notes for every one of the lessons. Great to see some questions coming in. Please do feel free to add your questions. I'll get to them in just a moment. Just a few more points here. We will also be sending out email check-ins. So every time a lesson becomes available, we'll send you an email to let you know that the lesson is in the Academy. You'll be able to log in and access the lesson when you want. You don't need to do the lesson there and then. You can access it when you want. we will provide varied exercises and activities. So all the activities will be a little bit different. You'll be doing some reading activities. There are some listening activities at some point. And then there are also the module checklists, which will allow you to check what you've learned and literally tick off, I can now do this, I can now do that. There's the video review for each module, where we go through the main points of the lesson with a handy video to let you review what you've learned. And then most importantly, there's feedback. So for every lesson, we ask you to do a little homework activity. Normally it's use something that you've learned in a sentence and post that on the Coffee Break Academy in a private area for discussion around the Masterclass. So everyone involved in the Masterclass has access to this area. You post your homework and we, the team, the Masterclass team, will give you feedback on that homework. So you'll see your own feedback, but you'll also see the feedback given to other students in the Masterclass. So you've got the learning that they're getting too. So you post your homework, perhaps you've made a couple of mistakes. Our tutors will help you with those mistakes in a very kind way, I promise. And then you'll also see the feedback that other students are getting, and you'll be able to get a feel for what you're getting wrong, what other people are getting wrong, but you'll be getting those corrections for everyone. So it's a great way to build your own confidence by looking at what other people are doing too. So that's the feedback, and it's a very important element. And this next one is about the target audience, indeed. So we're looking at who the Masterclass is for. So let me talk through this. We have got, as you probably know, 4 levels of Coffee Break Spanish at the moment anyway. So we've got Coffee Break Spanish, Season 1, 2, 3 and 4. In Season 1, this is for absolute beginners. So we're looking at transactional language, a basic introduction to grammar. Season 2, building that understanding, looking at the patterns of the language, past tenses in Spanish and so on. Then by the time we get to 3, we're looking at taking your Spanish further. More complex language and looking at more tenses and tricky grammar. And for Season 4, of course, this is advanced understanding, complex grammar, idiomatic expressions, and really getting into the language in a very deep way. Now, if you're familiar with the European Framework of Reference, then what we would say is that Season 1 is A1 material, Season 2, A2, B1, Season 3, B1, B2, and Season 4, B2, C1. And the Masterclass comes in the middle there, around about Season 3. So if you've been working on Seasons 1 and 2 and completed them and are confident with the content there, then the Masterclass is perfect for you. If you're working on Season 3 materials, then again, the Masterclass is perfect for you. If you're already working through Season 4 and you're very confident with the content in Season 4, the chances are the Masterclass is not quite for you. You may not be challenged enough with the Masterclass. It may be excellent revision or review material for you, but it may not necessarily be perfect for you if you're already very confident with the content in Season 4. So the Masterclass, just to sort of run through this again, if you've completed Season 2 or the equivalent, then that's perfect. If you're working on or if you've completed Season 3, if you're working at B1, B2 level of the Common European Framework of Reference, and if you've not yet started Season 4, then we believe that the Masterclass will be perfect for you. So I hope that explains exactly who the Masterclass is for. We want to make sure that the right people are in the Masterclass. If you're not yet at that stage, that's absolutely fine. We've got lots of materials in Season 2 to help you to build your confidence in other things like Coffee Break to Go. You're able to use those other materials and then work towards completing a Masterclass at some point in the future. If you're already advanced and you've been using the materials for Season 4, then probably the Masterclass isn't for you. So again, we would stress that we want only the people who are, in a sense, perfect for the Masterclass and for whom the Masterclass is perfect to join up to the Masterclass. And I hope that makes sense. It's definitely not for everyone. We don't want to just try and sell the Masterclass to you because we want you to buy the Masterclass. We want you to buy the Masterclass if the Masterclass is right for you. I mentioned selling. I mentioned buying. It's time to talk about pricing. So let's take a look at the pricing. So for every module, you will get the 5 lessons per month. You'll get bonus activities. You'll get the module test. You'll get the email check-ins. the guaranteed feedback on your homework activities, and then on the completion of the masterclass, you'll get a course certificate. The monthly cost for this, with 6 monthly payments, is £54. Now that includes VAT in the UK, or indeed if you're buying in another EU country, then you would pay VAT at the local rate. If you don't pay VAT, it would be £45 excluding VAT. If you're paying in dollars, then excluding VAT, that would be $56 for the monthly cost. And just to stress, that's 6 monthly payments, not an ongoing payment. It's 6 monthly payments of that amount for 6 months, but beyond the masterclass, you still get access to all the materials. So you'll get access to all the audio, video, and text materials, and you'll still be able to see all your feedback from your homework and so on after the masterclass is finished. But we don't ask for any more money after that. If you prefer, you can pay for everything at once. So a one-off fee, in that case, you'll get 1 month free. So that's all those materials every month for the 6 months for a single payment of £270. And that's including VAT. Again, VAT will be charged at the local rate, $225 excluding VAT. And if you're paying in dollars, it would be $280. And that's the one-off fee. And again, that's only paid once. You don't pay that multiple times, but you still get access to everything afterwards. Okay. Now, I know that there are some questions. We're going to come to the questions in just a moment. But before we do, let us take a quick look at some testimonials from people who have gone through the masterclass before. We've actually been doing the masterclass for about 4 years now, so there have been a number of classes of the masterclass over the years. This is the same one as we've done in the past. Each time we refine it a little and make sure that it's perfect for the new class that's going through the masterclass. But we've got lots of people who have gone through the masterclass before, so let's take a quick look at some of these testimonials. So Melanie is saying, I'm finding the masterclass extremely useful and convenient. The topics are nicely targeted to the needs of my level in Spanish, and the materials and activities are well designed. I like the way the learning and challenges are deliverable in doable packages that fit with a busy life. We've also got Elvin, who's saying, I like the regular intervals of the masterclass, which really make me want to keep up and improve my Spanish by a little practice every few days. The modules are extended enough to really dive into subject like verbos or frases hechas, but they're short enough to keep you motivated and work your way through them easily. Thank you, Elvin. We've got Jeff, who is saying, I'm enjoying the masterclass very much and I'm a huge fan of all things Coffee Break Spanish. I love the fact that there's new material presented every few days. That keeps things fresh and gives me something new to work on throughout the week. Receiving timely feedback about our posts is extremely helpful and provides a great deal of additional learning. So just a few comments there from some of the learners who have already gone through the masterclass. Now, we've got a few questions here. Let me tackle the questions that have come in. So we have got Emma. This is more a comment, really, than a question. Emma is saying, I've been studying Spanish for years, but still can't seem to put it all together. I can understand better than speak. I just freeze unless I've rehearsed a conversation, can't think on my feet. That, in a sense, is part of what we're trying to do with the masterclass, help you prepare those conversations and have this bank of content, bank of language and expressions that you can use, as you say, on your feet. Thank you for your comment. Karen is asking, how does it work if you cannot attend first classes? Well, for example, if you happen to be on vacation at the beginning of October, it's not a problem. You can catch up. That's the reason we have the start of the month with the lessons and then the other half of the month without any lessons. It's the consolidation time. So what happens on the first of the month is that lesson becomes available. It doesn't mean you have to do it on that day. It simply becomes available in the Coffee Break Academy. So you can do it that day if you've got access to it, or if you're on holiday or whatever, then you can do it at a later point. The only thing that we would say is that if you were to say, okay, I'm not going to do anything until I get to December, well, that kind of means that you're sort of missing out on the buzz, if you like, of the homework. So when people are posting their homework soon after the lesson comes out, then it's beneficial to be part of that. But I certainly wouldn't worry if you're talking about a week or a couple of weeks at the beginning where you're going to miss out on certain times. And equally, if you're going on holiday in January or something like that, then it's perfectly possible to catch up on the masterclass materials after the event. Okay, we've got another question from Florence. I didn't understand very well. I have a level B1, B2. Is it possible to do the masterclass or not? Absolutely, Florence. Yeah, so the masterclass is aimed at people working around that level, and that will help you build your confidence in that type of content. So hopefully the kind of content that we were talking about there gave you a feel for what would be involved. So the different topics of the different verb tenses, the tricky things in Spanish, the subjunctive and so on. Hopefully that gave you a feel of the grammatical level. But the texts themselves and the conversations are aimed around that B1, B2 level. So if you're very confident with the B1, B2 level, perhaps you may look rather at the Season 4 stuff. It would be worthwhile having a look at the content on our website. Obviously, we have all the audio content available for our main seasons, so check out Season 4. If you feel Season 4 is too difficult for you, then absolutely the masterclass will be perfect. I hope that helps. Sheila is asking, what kind of software is needed to participate? Do you have staff for technical problems? Are you assigned a particular helper for this class? You're not assigned a particular helper. You will be working with a tutor. So I think the tutor for most of the masterclass will be Annabelle, and Annabelle will be helping you work through the modules by giving you feedback on your Spanish. In terms of the technical side of things, it's very, very straightforward. It all happens within the Coffee Break Academy. So you get your login for the Coffee Break Academy. You log in, you see Masterclass, you log into the Masterclass, and you'll see that it's Thursday the 8th of October. I don't even know if that's a Tuesday. Tuesday the 8th of October. Lesson 3 is available. Click on Lesson 3 and then you'll play the audio file. You can access the PDF associated with that. It's all there in the browser. So you can access everything within the browser. If you prefer to download the content, then you can download it to your computer. If you have, for example, an iPad or an iPhone, there's a slight issue with that in a sense because the iPhones and iPads don't allow you to download content natively, but we suggest a third-party app which will allow you to download that. It's very straightforward. I wouldn't worry about that, Sheila. Sue is saying, I did Showtime Spanish. How does that relate in difficulty to this masterclass? So Sue, Showtime Spanish is what we now call Coffee Break Spanish Season 3. So Coffee Break Spanish Season 3 is that B1, B2 level. So what this would give you in the masterclass is more practice of that level. So some of the things that we were introducing in certain lessons of Season 3, things like the cuando sea mayor, things like that, when we looked at sea coming after cuando, then these are kind of things that we'll go into more detail and not just cover it because it happens to come up, but cover it because we want to teach you that particular concept at that particular time. So I hope that helps you understand. Basically, the Showtime Spanish content is the same sort of level as the masterclass, but the masterclass would give you the opportunity to get into that further. If you find that you're very confident with that, then we would again suggest that you continue to look at Season 4 rather than the masterclass. Again, if you've got any further comments, please, or questions, please do post them. I've got a little more information to share with you. First of all, about registration. So the registration for the masterclass is now open. We opened this just in the middle of last week. The masterclass begins on the 1st of October. And registration will close on the 6th of October or when we determine that the class is full. So it may not necessarily be possible to sign up for the masterclass after we get started because the class may be full by that stage. So the masterclass is now available, and I know that the team has posted the link in the chat, so you can either go to that link or just use this one, coffeebreakspanishmasterclass.com. That will take you to the sign-up page where you can sign up to take part in the class of October 2019 in the masterclass. Okay, I think we are going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for all your questions and all your comments. We are very much looking forward to working with the class of October 2019 in the masterclass. As I say, keep an eye on your email, keep an eye on Facebook. We'll be doing some more webinars over the course of the next week. Everything starts on the 1st of October. There are already a number of students in the masterclass introducing themselves and obviously getting welcomes from the team. We will also be taking a look inside the masterclass in the next webinar, so that will give you a chance to see what it's actually like when you're a student in the masterclass. But for now, we're going to leave it there. If nothing else, I hope that you have learned the verb toser tonight. and that is giving you a little bit of a new vocabulary item in Spanish to focus on. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and for sticking with us right to the end. I would like to wish you continued success in your Spanish learning. Happy coffee breaking, and if you're going to be watching the Bake Off, then enjoy the Bake Off. Muchísimas gracias a todos y hasta muy pronto.